Good evening, everyone. Welcome to UVic Alumni Winterfest event, Navigating the Future of Work. As we gather together here tonight, I would like to first take a moment to acknowledge and respect the Lekwungen peoples on whose traditional territory our university stands, and the Sanghees, the Esquimalt, and Wasanic people whose historical relationships with the land continues to this day. I would also like to acknowledge the territory that I am joining from today, the land of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, and I'm very lucky to be living and breathing on this land. My name is Saeed Rezvani, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to this evening's event. I graduated not too long ago from UVic in 2021 with a civil engineering Master's of Science degree, and I shortly moved to Vancouver, joined the Vancouver UVic Alumni Network in Vancouver, and I'm also a part of the UVic Alumni Association Board of Directors, and I'm very excited to be here tonight and to learn about the future of work. Also, the UVic Alumni Association is pleased to be able to gather with all of you tonight and to share this opportunity to learn about career alignment and mental health in the changing world that we are in. Joining us tonight to lead the discussion is UVic career educator, Karae White. And Karae specializes in career transition coaching and is joined by three fantastic panelists tonight. We have Sashi Steenstra, Manager of Workforce Development Solutions at the Communication Technology Council in Calgary. We have Amy Saini, a UVic alum and an HR consultant and leadership coach. And lastly, but certainly not least, we have Heather Kirkconnell, another UVic alum and Director of Workplace Mental Health in the Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions. Thank you all for being with us tonight. I'm very excited to jump to the event, but as we're warming up for the event, there are a couple of housekeeping notes that I would like to share. First, following the discussion, there will be a dedicated Q&A session, and you have the opportunity to ask your questions during the event. Please use the Q&A feature in the Zoom. You'll find the Q&A button in the bottom of your Zoom screen. Secondly, if you would like to access captioning tonight, there's another button with two C's in a square in the bottom of your Zoom screen also. You can access the captioning with that. And the last point is, if you're having any difficulty or need assistance, please email alumtech@uvic.ca. It's ALUMDECH@uvic.ca, and one of the alumni staff will be happy to assist you. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Karae White, Sashi Steenstra, Amy Saini, and Heather Kirkconnell. Karae, over to you.
Thank you, Saeed. So honored to be here. And here comes the people. There we go. Spectacular. Thank you. So as Saeed mentioned, I'm a career educator. I work in engineering and computer sciences, which is a pretty fun place to be. I'm new to UVic, but not new to career coaching. Been at it for about 20 plus years. Like to say I've earned all of my gray hair. So I just would like to welcome each of our guests, and I'll get you to give yourselves a little introduction, and then we're going to move into our questions. I'm going to start at the top of my screen. Heather, would you go first?
Thanks so much, Karae. So nice to be here, and always have such fond memories of the University of Victoria. But yes, it's been a while. I think I graduated with an undergrad in health and community services in 2014, probably. And recently in 2020, completed a Master's of Health Administration from University of British Columbia. And I have been, well, first, before I jump in, let me just say, Karae, I'm calling in from the traditional unceded territories of the Stolo people in Chilliwack. Made a COVID move out to Chilliwack a year and a half ago, and I'm just loving exploring the areas here. And I've been with doing health promotion and public health work behavior change marketing with various ministries in the provincial government for 15 years. And yeah, currently working as the director for workplace mental health and also doing provincial marketing and communication to reduce stigma towards people who use drugs. So I wear a couple different hats in my role, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to doing multiple different jobs. Sometimes it's called upon in, especially in a workforce that's a bit stretched these days.
That's great. Wow. Thank you so much, Heather. You're going to have such great little nuggets to contribute. It'll be good. Amy, you're next.
Hi, everyone. I'm calling in from the lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people as well. I am a UVic grad. I graduated a long time ago, 2002. So it's definitely been a while. And after my time at UVic, I went on to do a master's in adult education and pursued my CPHR. And most recently, I went back to school and also completed my coaching diploma. So my work has predominantly been in HR for the last 18 years or so. And, that's really continued to evolve. The profession has really evolved, especially over the last 10 years or so. And it's actually a really exciting time for a professional like myself to see some of the just societal issues that we're working through in the workplace, whether it be mental health, equity, diversity, inclusion, all of that. So I'm really enjoying being in this space. And I'll hand it back to you, Karae.
That's great, Amy. Thank you. You also, I know, are going to have some invaluable nuggets just from that employer perspective. And one of the things sort of hinting at is that things are different. They're going to continue to be different. The way that our workforce is going to roll out, it hasn't been this way in like 100 years since before the Industrial Revolution. So it's going to be kind of topsy-turvy and makes it super interesting. So speaking of workforce, I would like to introduce our last guest, Sashi.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Karae. My name is Sashi Steenstra. I work for ICTC in Calgary. ICTC is Information and Communications Technology Council, and I'm a manager workforce development solutions. I did my BSc and master's degree in anthropology from the University of Calgary. And unlike Amy, I'm not going to tell you the year that I graduated. And I currently support upskilling programs to support program participants seeking to find work in high-tech, high-growth opportunities across Canada. Very excited to be part of this discussion.
Thanks, Sashi. And although you didn't grad from UVic, you used to work at UVic.
I did for almost 13 years. So I'm really excited to be part of UVic event today.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you everybody for joining us, like truly from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to get started with our very first question. Can you guys think of a time that you made a transition, like a big transition? And with the benefit of hindsight, because it's always fantastic to have, what kind of steps did you go through? For example, how did you start a new career or maybe make a career change? And I'm just going to start at the top of my screen and go down, which is Sashi gets to start this time.
Yeah, thanks, Karae. And I've thought about this question because I did my Bachelor of Science degree and Master of Arts degree in anthropology, specializing in primatology because I loved what I studied. So I studied monkey behavior because I thought I was going to go on and do my PhD. And then I quickly realized that the academic life wasn't for me. And then I went, how am I going to find a job? Because I studied monkeys and it was really hard. So I went on and I became a flight attendant for WestJet when they launched in Calgary in 1996. And then I taught English in South Korea for 2 years. But only recently have I realized that looking back, now I can see all the connections. So when I studied monkeys, I understood situational awareness and social science data analytics. So when I went to South Korea, I understood and appreciated cultural intelligence. And also when I was working at WestJet, I understood patience, true patience when it comes to customer service. But I could only recognize the linkages because I've been in workforce development for almost 20 years. But now that I look back, I can see the value that all of those jobs gave me. And I think that's the lesson, is that you have to find value in everything you do. All work experience counts.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely. I call that the official follow your nose type of career path. And it's like instinctively we do know where to go, but we just can't maybe articulate because we don't have that hindsight. So yeah, that's a perfect example of that. Thank you, Sashi, so much. Heather, can you talk to us about a career change or a big transition that you may have gone through?
Yeah, I love people's stories like Sashi's. It's just so refreshing. And, you know, I think we all think that so many people have this like straight trajectory of their career path. And so when you hear stories like that, it's just so, it's grounding. And similarly, I started with a very clear path in mind when I started at the University of Victoria. I actually moved there in 2000, and I said I didn't finish my degree till 2014. So it was a very long learning curve for me. And I was convinced I was going to be a teacher. I was starting down that path. And it didn't take me long to realize it wasn't quite for me. I always wanted to teach people, but I realized I didn't need to be in an educational format to do that. And so I took a bit of a leap of faith and left UVic. Waiting to find sort of another program that was going to be the right fit for me, followed my passion in fitness and nutrition, and ended up starting my own business as a nutritional consultant and fitness coach for a number of years. And when I look back, I was doing a lot of workplace wellness at the time. It was a lot of lunch and learns and talks for businesses who are sort of early into their recognition that healthy workplaces was a benefit to employees. And so, but I did not love having my own business. I did not love serving individual clients, and I did that for a year, and it broke my. It broke me, and I realized I needed to shift into more societal changes around behavior change. And so I found out that needed to be likely in provincial government. And so thinking broad scale around how to impact the behaviors of populations as opposed to individuals. But I didn't have a degree anymore. Like I had left university 10 years ago. And so I think really where I started finding out was just really researching, like figuring out, I didn't know what that job would look like. And so I just really was on this mission to find out who it was, who was doing that work, what that work would look like. And so it really was an exercise in deep research and curiosity, talking to people, putting myself out there, and then becoming a yes woman. Like when I look back, it was about taking opportunities. There was a job that came up to support the lead up to the Olympic Games, and it meant me being on the road for 6 months, leaving my husband, bunking with strangers, living with people who were 10 years younger than me. But I knew if I took that job, it would get me in the door. And so it was a risk, but it was like, it just felt like this opportunity. And so looking back on it, it really was just that leap of faith and saying yes to a door that opened. And yeah, sure enough, 15 years later, still working for the provincial government, doing similar but different work. So yeah, it was a fun exercise. So thank you for the opportunity to reflect on that too.
Oh, good. That's great to hear. I make people do it all the time. They don't always thank me though. That's great, Heather. Love that you're like brave enough to go out and talk with people and explore and be curious, because that just makes a world of difference. Very cool. Amy, how about you? Can you think about a transition that you went through?
Yeah, actually, I recently, well, not so recently, but through the pandemic, went through a transition. I mean, we're always, going through so many transitions through the course of our career. I really resonate with a lot of what Heather and Sashi were saying, and especially around what Sashi said around the connections that you start to see as you reflect back on the many things that you've done. I think, for the first 10 years of my career, I was kind of just like, doing my yoga teacher training because that's a personal passion, and going back to do my master's because I thought I wanted to teach adults, and teaching English in Taiwan, and just a whole host of different things. And, also pursuing my CPHR to work in HR, but questioning a lot that first whole decade, like, am I in the right career? Am I making the right choices? What is this all going to lead to? Back in the UVic days, I did my undergrad in geography and environmental studies because I was just, you know, a bit of a activist and a disruptor in those days. And that looks different for me today. I thought I was going to work in international development, and I did a stint in West Africa and Ghana working, you know, with women there on employment skills. And I realized that, you know, as much as I thought that's what I wanted to do, I just questioned, you know, am I causing more harm by being in this community? Like, will they be able to translate some of the skills that I'm leaving behind on their own when we're not here? So just so much learning and growth along the way, and consistent questioning. So I stuck, that's kind of when I decided, like, you know, I'm going to go into HR and do that. I like working with people, and how can I marry my, you know, social justice lens with HR? And so for the last, 18 years or so, I've been working in the nonprofit sector, primarily doing human resources. And working with a lot of different organizations from large to small. Today, I work with a HR consulting company called HR West, and my portfolio is predominantly community-based organizations. So Indigenous groups, environmental, gender-based violence, mental health, just a whole host of amazing organizations that do great work. But I don't think I saw that that was coming together for me in the way that, you know, it just felt so confusing through the process, for sure. And then during the pandemic, I was, you know, that was before I became a consultant. I was working for a health and wellness organization. We had to unfortunately close our doors during the pandemic. It was a, you know, an incredible organization that was really hard to, you know, with grace, walk everyone out and do that with love. But through that, I did some coaching for myself. You know, I just wanted to, again, do some self-reflection, like, am I still in the right place? And through the coaching, I just realized how powerful just the art of coaching is. And, you know, I started working with HR West, you know, and I then was doing my coaching certification alongside for the first 18 months of the pandemic. And that's been really rewarding to, you know, be able to show up as a coach for others, and even just weaving some of the yoga and meditation and all of those pieces from my background into how I coach and show up in that way. So I think you find ways to bring in all the nuggets of wisdom and the little joys that are your unique journey, but it can take a while to get there.
Yes. Oh, that's such great advice. You just wrapped that up perfectly for me. Thank you. It's just, it's about weaving it all in. And sometimes I think we don't always know. So I asked that question because I wanted everybody's brain sort of primed for where I want to go next. And I want everybody to be thinking about how they've made a change in the past, and that you figure it out as you go. You really do. We always have. We're like, as a species, we just keep managing. So I'd like to share a slide with you that I created, trying to, in a nutshell, say what the changes in the economy are, what we're looking at right now. And some of it's a little bit overwhelming, so we're going to try and break some of it down. A lot of it is some stuff that's been put out there, but we don't really know exactly for sure what's going to happen. So we've got economic drivers, the big picture, and then daily realities, how I sort of break that down. So we have a climate crisis. We've known it's been coming for a long time, just like we've known there's going to be a shortage of workers, and wondering what machine learning is going to look like. So with the climate crisis, we are now on a drive for net zero, and that brings us down to the daily green economy, which is it's a very, very polite term. Conference Board of Canada talks about 1 in 5 people experiencing job losses or being adversely affected by the green economy. So that's like a lot of people that are going to have things change for them. So my goal in sharing some of this information is that if it's on everybody's radar, then we're going to be able to better react to it a little bit, maybe duck and weave in a way that leaves us standing on our feet. We also, and you may have heard about this a lot in the news, have a shortage of workers. So, 20 years ago, we knew there would be this big boomer bulge, and that they were all going to start to retire. And COVID accelerated that. And so as a result, there's a couple of crazy things that have happened. There are a lot of jobs that aren't being filled. And so they're looking at adding artificial intelligence to be able to do those jobs that nobody else wants to do. And then province of BC's, like the Labor Market Outlook, as well as Future Skills Canada, is now predicting that 80% of the jobs that are going to be available will need post-secondary education. So that could be university, could be college, any different kinds of training. There's lots of choices there. But the question is, how do we all just sort of stop and go get some education? So trying to sort some of those things out. And then you may have started to hear a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So Amy even mentioned a little bit. So there's this pool of people that we're not accessing that could work. And so for employers, for the first time, they really need to start thinking about how they're going to have workers so they can make money and so we can pay taxes, all of that kind of fun stuff. We've also got machine learning. And for those of us who are old like me, white hair, machine learning is really kind of hard to wrap our brains around because it's going to go ridiculously fast, like ridiculously fast. So as sort of an example, not about machine learning, but about how tech moves in a society, it took Microsoft 1 year to get 1 million users, took Instagram 5 months to get 1 million users, and it took ChatGPT 5 days to get 1 million users. So just as an idea of how rapidly things grow, machine learning is all about the machine teaching itself. Like it starts with that artificial intelligence, but then off it goes. So that then creates this transitioning economy and completely different skill sets. So for example, I was talking with my amazing sister-in-law, and she's teaching junior high school, English, history. And I'm like, so what are you doing with ChatGPT? And she's like, well, I need to teach them how to think critically and decide what about ChatGPT is going to work and what's not going to work. And then we have to decide collectively how to use it as a tool. Education, completely big transition. We'll also be needing new ways of learning. So that's part of that 80% of jobs needing post-secondary. And so SASHI, the organization she belongs with, they're all over that stuff. Different versions of micro-credentials. You can look at IT boot camps, but you're going to see a whole lot more of that. There's recently been a national level funding that went out to an organization to start studying how to set up micro-credentials in a way that makes it fair and equitable for everybody. So that's our slide on the stuff that's happening out there. Not sure how much it's going to affect each of us or how much it'll all come to fruition. I always like to remember when I was in high school and computers first came in, we got the first classroom and they said, we're going to have a paperless society. Well, we don't have a paperless society. We have a lot less paper than we used to, and we sure use computers a lot more than we used to. So people adopt things in different ways, but I wanted you to have a heads up that some of these things are brewing out there. So based on that, then how do we manage all that? And that's why I wanted these panelists to join us. And I have some questions to ask them. So I want to start with Amy. How do you see some of these transitions impacting company culture? So what are some of the strategies alumni might use to navigate those impacts?
Well, one thing that I really see with, working with so many different organizations is just the impact of, I mean, we talked a little bit about diversity, equity, inclusion, but just, what you were saying, Karae, about, baby boomers. So just looking at generations alone, this is the first time we've had 5 different generations working in the workplace together. So the dynamics that creates is, it's huge. And then coupled with that, we've got boomers retiring, and then we've got, a lot of Gen Z that are entering the workforce now, and they are the first fully digital native generation that we've ever had. So that is, it's huge. Like, this is something we've never really seen before. So their comfort level with analytics and data, because they've always had access to the internet and technology and information, their savviness with digital tools, their tech skills, and then our need to really skill them up quickly to move into these leadership and management positions that boomers are retiring from. This is all happening all at once, which can make it a really, exciting time for folks. But also we've got some external things that are shifting in our, BC climate as well. Even right now, they say about 28% of our population in BC are immigrants. 30% or so are visible minorities. And I was at a BC Board and Trade, a Burnaby Board and Trade session the other day, and they were saying that by 2036 it's really likely that 3 in 4 people in Vancouver will be immigrants or second generation Canadians. So that whole DEI piece that was in your slide previously, it just really speaks to the so many, the changing workforce that we're working with. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here for alumni that are going out into the workforce, because we've got so many different values that we're tending to, and kind of the millennial and Gen Z generation are quickly going to be making up most of the workforce, and not so long from now. So that means those values around climate change, or organizations really needing to highlight what their efforts are around being good global citizens, and their actions speaking louder than words. These are all things that I think are impacting workplace culture. I also think, from what I've seen myself as a coach and a support in the workplace, that Gen Y and Gen Z, they are very open about issues like mental health. Like, they want transparency about how they can grow in a workplace, what the organization is doing to support different causes. So a lot of transparency and communication are also things that I'm seeing in the workplace. And I think, I hope that provides some context for folks that are going out there to navigate, the world of work.
That's great. Yes. Oh my gosh, my brain is buzzing with all these thoughts, and things like to put in your resume about working with multicultural groups, and how fantastic that we're reaching a time where if you speak another language, it'll be valued, because you'll have this whole other perspective to be able to bring and work with groups. And so, sort of along those lines, continue with that thought, I want to throw a question up to Sashi now. So what could networking look like in this kind of post-COVID world? What kind of opportunities could individuals look for so that they can meaningfully connect? Like, how do we do that? Any thoughts?
Thanks, Crane. My dog just started to bark when you asked me that question, so hopefully you can't hear it. Yeah, the landscape of networking has changed a lot. And the idea of networking as a concept is often really misunderstood. And really, it's just creating authentic connections with people. And what I always tell people is that you should stay open and stay curious. A lot of our program participants will say, I don't know how to network, I'm an introvert. And my counter to that is that often introverts are the best networkers, because they actually know how to listen to people. So, and also to understand that when you think about networking, there's different styles of networking. And if person A doesn't have a better style than person B, it's just different. And if you're an introvert, you can accomplish a lot behind a computer screen in addition to meeting with people. So just adjust your style based on your comfort level. But I think it's something that Heather said, and it's stay open and stay curious. Ask really good questions and never underestimate any person that you meet, because guaranteed they're going to know something you don't. And I also have to put a plug in for LinkedIn. Karae knows I talk about LinkedIn a lot, but the platform turned 20 years old last year, and they have over 800 million users worldwide. And it still remains a really underutilized platform. They keep making upgrades, especially since the pandemic hit, to be more inclusive. Like, they have a feature where you, on the app, where you can record the pronunciation of your name so that the person meeting you can get it right the first time. Like, what a great way to eliminate bias that way. But really, what you're trying to do on LinkedIn, it serves a few purposes besides just being a job board. You can build your online presence. So, because chances are that someone's going to make a first impression of you before ever meeting you in person. They say over 85% of recruiters Google potential candidates before inviting them to an interview. So, job board, building your online presence, but also researching. LinkedIn is like the largest org chart in the world. It's a wealth of information. And it's a place where you can really, like we were talking about earlier, connect the dots, tell your own story in your own words, show some personality. Don't just talk about your tech skills, but highlight your soft skills as well. Showcase yourself as a whole person. And also, I just want to quickly mention, when you connect with people on LinkedIn, how important it is to personalize that connection request. And how you do it is, if you can think of these three things, you can either compliment someone, be relatable, or add value. And if you can do more than one of those things, even better. So compliment someone, add value, or be relatable. Because what you need to do is you need to cultivate that relationship before you benefit from it. And I think that's one thing that job seekers sometimes fail to do, is they have an ask in that first connection request and they immediately erode trust. Like, get to know me first, right? It's a first date. You're headed to the wedding already. So, and I also just wanted to reiterate a point that we brought up earlier. Last night I was teaching a workshop for a pilot that we're running with Microsoft to support 40 women or femme who are attending the Toronto Metropolitan University or University of Calgary, and they're getting certification in cybersecurity. And one of the students there at TMU, she said, but what work experience do I have that's relevant? And I said, it's all relevant, actually. If you were a landscaper, did you meet and exceed deadlines? If you were a bartender, did you win customers' loyalty through providing personalized service? So it's all about thinking about transferable skills and thinking about the benefit you brought your employer and your role in that. And when you can talk transferable skills, you will appeal to any employer in any position.
Great. Wow. So much information. That's fantastic, Sashi. LinkedIn is, yes, it's the best playground for looking for work. Certainly my experience teaching people to research on there is really, really beneficial. Absolutely. And yeah, understanding your transferable skills. That's so many things. Okay, I'm going to change tacks. And Heather, you know you're up. So the question that I want to ask Heather, in what ways are you seeing shifts like all the ones that we've been talking about affect workplace mental health? And then what strategies can employees put into place to support their teams? Additionally, maybe what resources could employees advocate for? So sort of both sides, like how are we going to go through this storm and come out okay?
Yeah, and my goodness, what a storm we have been through, right? Like you sort of painted this picture of like the potentially what's on the horizon, Karae, but my gosh, what we've come through is, talk about building resilience for individuals and workplaces over these past couple of years. And it's so ironic because this role in the Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions with the provincial government only came to be, the timing, it just happened to be maybe serendipitously that my first day was March 20th, 2020. And I had one day in the office before we went into full, remote work for who knows how long. And before that, honestly, across government, there hadn't been a dedicated resource for workplaces as a setting. Health promotion had been based primarily on like a subject. So you had health promotion in healthy eating or physical activity or smoking cessation. But in terms of a settings-based approach, this was actually the first role of its kind. And it was just so serendipitous that it landed in the year of the pandemic and the month of it really exploding globally. And so prior to that, all my work over the years, like I had said in my intro, had been fairly light touch. I still found it was workplace mental health and workplace wellness, we called it at the time, was still a real soft. It really felt like a nice to have. Employers were doing, they still expected to really stay within the confines of business. If it's not about business, we're probably not going to talk about it. It's not really my problem. That's your problem. What I saw like in spades throughout the pandemic, and it is staying, is a commitment and acknowledgement from employers that workplace, that mental health matters. And sure, when it comes to claims and it comes to insurance, there's, we're talking about issues related to cause and that's fine. But I think workplaces are getting a little softer around the edges, recognizing that employees, regardless of what the impact of their mental health challenges are better for everybody. They're better for their business, they're better for themselves, they're better for their staff, they're better for their family and their community. And so I've seen this shift in terms of thinking about their employees sort of more holistically. Now, businesses are still, I think what organizations, even with that recognition, comes a lot of confusion, like what to do next. My goodness, like there's so many pressures, there's so much expectation now. I get that it's the right thing to do, both from a business perspective and a human being perspective, but I didn't come equipped with the tools to do that. And so I think for workplaces or for folks who are in that employer role, I think the most important thing you can do is listen to your staff and ask them what's working, ask them what they need, because what workplace mental health, or what we call psychological health and safety in the workplace, what that looks like and feels like for different folks, especially when we're talking about a very diverse workforce, is really different. So I think the best advice I can give as a starting point is to really understand what some of the drivers are for your staff, and then what some of the benefits they may be looking for. For some folks, that may look like gym passes. That may look like more money for clinical counseling. It may look like a day off for cultural events. And all those things can be part of that solution, but you won't know. And so trying to get organizations away from sort of this top down, this is how you get mentally well, or here's your benefits, we're done kind of thing, and really engaging all staff. And then on the flip side, for employees, coming to the table and being part of that. So maybe setting up a committee or volunteering, or again, finding out what other people might be interested in. So I think, coming and thinking about how you can be involved is always beneficial. For folks looking for guidance, I would point you to the Canadian National Standard for Psychological Health and Safety, and then some of the work that we're doing in BC around Work Mental Health BC. And the other tip I'll just say for employers is really it's an easy trap to focus on the individual behavior of workers. And I think self-care is really important. That's a lesson for individuals too. Like we all have a personal accountability and responsibility to do things that are health promoting. However, employers also need to sort of look at their policies and their programs and think about those systemic drivers about how they can create environments where folks can thrive, because it's unfair to ask for individuals to change things in a construct that doesn't allow them to do that. I think people know how that works in built environments that aren't suitable for health promoting behavior. So it's the same in a workplace. So sort of think big picture. And then one thing I just wanted, some really tangible things for individuals is, or for employers, the last one is just to ask folks how they're doing. That's a really good way to bring the human side and to start to show that you care about people's well-being and to tell people how you're doing. And so it opens up, again, to Sashi's point around reciprocity. People don't want to just always be telling you how they're doing if you're not giving up anything of yourself. It doesn't mean cracking yourself wide open, but it does mean if you want to receive something from somebody, you're going to have to give something up. And so that's a great, like, tangible action for employers. And for employees, I'd say, yeah, focus, your self-care and where those special moments you can grab for yourself. Take your time off. Like we heard throughout the pandemic, we knew people were working through their vacations and not taking holidays. Taking time off to reset and using that vacation time, I think, is one of the really, really like tangible things, aside from like volunteering and looking at supporting your organization through policy change. But take time off for you, do the things that bring you joy, and yeah, use what's on offer for you. And if there aren't things that working, then hopefully you've got a supervisor that you can speak up to. So those are some on all the ends there, Karae, for you to think about.
Oh, fantastic stuff, Heather. Thank you so much. I'm thinking actually for the first time, sort of the stuff that Amy said and the stuff that you said. And if we've got multi-generations working in a workforce, as an employer, one size fits all package isn't going to work anymore. And I think that's how we've been approaching it. So yeah, more on an individual basis, but then equally, I guess, we need to advocate for what it is we need. Like we need to stop and think about what it is that we need. Could I leave 15 minutes earlier today because I got to get my kid to soccer practice and it's a nightmare. I'll stay 15 minutes later on another day, kind of. Yeah. And having that flexibility. But yeah, I don't think I thought of it in those kinds of terms. So that's really appreciative. And if we're in fact developing authentic relationships and networking, like in work as well as outside of work, I think maybe we can achieve some of that. Employers are going to have to kind of pay attention. In the US right now, there are 2 jobs every 1 person. The shortage of workers is monumental. And so really since the first time since before Industrial Revolution, we've got a changing landscape. Even in Canada, we had the least amount of people on employment insurance in the last 25 years. So it's a brave new world, definitely. So now let me just check. Okay, so we can do one last question and then we'll move on to Q&As. Yay. So I'm looking for one emerging trend that you see in the workplace, the workforce as we're going along. Anything that would especially help people like find fulfillment or balance or health, any of those kinds of things, but an emerging trend that you think people should know about in our workforce that you've seen kind of in your worlds brewing. Has everybody gone first yet? Heather, you go first this time.
Oh, I was like, I hope she doesn't come to me.
Oh, okay. Just wait then. Sashi's ready to go.
Sashi had her microphone off.
That's okay. So Karae knows ICTC is a national center for expertise. We're a not-for-profit, and we have a research arm to our organization that's known for trusted evidence-based policy advice. And we have the program side where I work, and they're creative capacity building programs. And often the research informs how we create the program. And it's not a surprise that according to our research, flexibility, a key component to the future of work. Remote work is easy for a lot of people, but actually it may encourage inequality, especially when it comes to gender equity. I know a lot of women are suffering because they're working from home because they carry the burden of, blessing of raising children, but also access to resources are a challenge as well, like even accessing the internet, for example. So we know that the world of work is changing and it's becoming increasingly fragmented and decentralized. So it's critical as a job seeker to keep open and to keep learning. But, we didn't really talk much about micro-credentials. We've been talking about micro-credentials for a few years at ICTC, but it's really important that job seekers or people looking to pivot in any way stay in tune and in touch with their industry, their target industry, because they want to make sure that those certifications are recognized and they're doing the right ones. I mean, no learning is waste, but it's a good idea to check that out. So how you get labor market information, check out ICTC's research reports, but also it's through practice, print, and people. So print is websites, research reports. Practice is like on the job learning, and people. Stay connected to people and experts in those fields, because they will give you the most relevant and current information possible. And I just wanted to mention that in another ICTC report, by 2025, ICTC forecasts employment in the Canadian digital economy to reach 2.26 million, triggering a demand for an additional 250,000 jobs.
Wow. 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 So much. Wow. Just another nugget. I know it won't surprise you guys, but you should follow Sashi on LinkedIn. Likes to post lots of great things and as a way to sort of keep up. But you can also follow other industry experts that, you know, in your area, as well as like UVic Alumni has lots of things that are that get posted up on the LinkedIn. Who would like to go
I was
next?
just going to do a reverse plug for you, Karae White. I would follow her as well.
Oh, thanks, Sashi. So one emerging trend, who would like to go next? Amy's up. Oh, I can't hear you all of a sudden, Amy. No, shoot. Like it says your microphone's off, but I can't hear you. No. Would it work if you unplugged your headset? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, I'm gonna have to come back to you. No. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, Amy. Maybe Luke will have some brilliant ideas. Heather, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, there. Yeah, now I can. Yeah. Okay. I lost you on my screen all of a sudden. Maybe it's my laptop that's going crazy. Heather, what's an emerging trend that you see?
Well, I think some of the comments have reminded me about, but I find it really exciting about the focus around diversity, equity, inclusion. I think there's a risk that it can certainly be tokenistic, and I think that's it's a caution for folks to do that work well. But I certainly think we can push to build for inclusivity first. Like if we build, I do a lot of web development, digital service navigation for the province, and I'm always thinking like, and same thing with, it doesn't have to be just digital, but think about the widest net you can cast first, and everybody else will benefit from that. And again, I'm seeing with workplaces, I'm seeing the adoption of accessibility and trying to be more thoughtful around design. Finally seems like it's getting a lot of traction. And so it's inspiring, I think, you know, to your point, Karae, earlier about untapped workforces, I think there's so many folks who are left out of the workforce who live with mental illness. Half of the population who are working are living with one or concurrent mental health conditions. And so, and that's not even on the severe spectrum. And so I think all that's to say is I'm looking forward to how we grow and adapt to be a more inclusive workplace, and we develop more inclusive tools, because everybody benefits when inclusivity is at the forefront and not secondary thought. So that's exciting for both employees, I think, and employers as well.
And I think it's such a valuable point that we all benefit when we have that inclusivity lens. It just makes it better. I've noticed that a couple of times lately, actually. I'm like, oh yeah, I can read the PowerPoint screen more easily because.
Right. Well, it's like the something as simple as like a kitchen tool that you're like, oh, this is really like the hand feel of this is great. And it was like, well, that was actually developed for somebody with Parkinson's who couldn't hold things. And so the grips needed to be bigger. And so it's like designing again for an inclusive audience where the net is wide and everybody benefits. Yeah.
My favorite is this closed captioning. And those people that type out the closed captions, they're my heroes. I think they make learning, like understanding communications, like, what a gift. Amy, you want to try again? An emerging trend? No. Oh, shoot. Do you want to type something in the chat, maybe? Yeah, give it a shot. You can, if you type it in our chat, I can read it out too. Luke's giving all these instructions, so hard to read while doing all this. Flexibility. Oh my gosh, in a word, she nails it. Bam. That's exactly it. Yeah. If something doesn't work one way, then go another way. It doesn't mean it's a wrong way. Yeah. Oh yeah. So flexibility, working with people, flexibility in our goals, connection between mental health, equity, diversity, inclusion, and psychological safety. Oh, yes. Lovely. Yes. Good stuff. Love that. Okay. So I would like to add just one little trend that I see happening, and I always have my teacher lens on. I used to be a grade 1 teacher. Maybe not the best fit, but definitely a teacher. I see that we're going to need trainer and developers everywhere we go. Every workplace is going to need a teacher to help teach somebody else and fill those skill gaps. So I really encourage you to look at building those kinds of skills to make yourself invaluable in the workplace. So now I think we have some audience that probably have some questions and answers. And Amy, can I just go ahead and start reading? Oh, from Jody. Okay. Jody says, I'm transitioning back into the workplace after a year off work due to burnout, COVID-related changes. How do I explain my time off to potential employers? Thank you. Oh, Jody, great question. Who would like to field that one? Sashi, do you want to hit that one?
Sure thing. I'm thinking of a few ways to answer that. So it's up to you when you're going to reveal that personal break that you took. So LinkedIn has recognized that people have career breaks, and they've actually added a feature where you could add a career break to your LinkedIn profile, because they want people to tell and claim their story as authentically as possible. So there's different reasons, there's different categories on LinkedIn to showcase that. There's bereavement, parental leave, there's a bunch of stuff. So, but it's a risk when you're going to reveal that, I would say, Jody. So I would say also to not shy away from it, to weave it into your story. And it wasn't that long, so it shouldn't be big of a deal, but you don't have to get into too many details. You have to decide what you're comfortable with. And I'd say own it and work it into your story. And keep in mind too that career breaks aren't such a big deal anymore because of so many massive layoffs. You're part of the crowd with a gap in your career history. So it's not such a stigma, thankfully, anymore. But I would say be honest, but be careful as to how much you disclose and when you disclose that. I would get more details when it's closer to being a more serious offer. Like, don't show all your cards at once. Just wait for it to come up organically. That would be my advice as a career coach.
Cool. I like that. Definitely. I think putting something in your resume that explains the year, like you said, like a bereavement leave would cover it. And then the reader knows that you're thinking about it, that you're not trying to hide something and hoping they just won't notice that the dates don't add up.
And it's nothing to be embarrassed of,
Yeah.
because it's part of everybody's life,
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to move on to our next comment. Kevin, it is my great pleasure to join in this wonderful meeting. Well, thank you, Kevin. That's very kind of you. So you graduated from UVic with a bachelor's degree in economics. Econ man. Okay, so as a graduated international student, I'm now having a work permit. I'm assuming that you've got your postgraduate work permit and seeking a new job to start and grow. I received an offer from a telecommunications company, and it's a sales associate position at the end of 2022. Initially, I plan to work for that position for at least 1 year in order to apply for Canadian PR. That's a great plan, Kevin, for sure. Sorry, I'm not sure what the question is. Maybe add in afterwards. What else have we got here? Asking for options about permanent residency. Actually, I really recommend that I don't tell you things I don't know. So we have an amazing International Student Center, and I mean amazing. Like, the stuff they field is incredible. That's a good resource. And they can help direct you, like as an alumni, to the work where you need to go. Oh, Saeed's helping me. The work offer was retracted and he's applying again, but he's not having much luck in finding a job. Oh, yes, so hard to find work. Okay. The people in the background are awesome, helping me. This is so nice. You know what I would recommend, and anybody please to chime in here, but I was reading something the other day that I just thought was super profound, in that anybody who has moved to our country, but any of us who've like moved cities and changed places, you have to build a network where you are. So whether it's a Canadian network, or we were in Calgary network, or now Victoria network, you need to build a network where you are. And so if anybody could chime in about different ways to build networks, and then through your networks, how you look for work, I would really appreciate the panelists' thoughts.
I thought Amy was going to try her mic again, so I step in. Oh, shoot. I think the healthiest networks are the most diverse. So you'll have fellow students, fellow alumni in your network. You'll have coaches, mentors, cheerleaders, previous bosses, friends, family, strangers, a bunch of strangers. So you have to keep making it. Like, what I do is I look at my network, I really do this, and I say, oh, I should be connected to students. Or I'll go, oh, I'm connected to too many people at ICTC. I need to branch out. So diversity is key when it comes to networking. And also to realize that the person who's going to hire you is a stranger to you now. How are you going to get to him or her? So it's taking little risks, depending on what your comfort level is, to reach out to people. And I think the biggest challenge for new grads, and I really wanted to make this point, is that they want that perfect job after graduation that ticks all the boxes. And they put so much pressure on themselves, instead of thinking, okay, I'm going to point my compass in some direction for the next 6 months, a year, see how it goes, and then take baby steps and head into the direction you kind of think you want to go. That would be my advice. So for networking, and if you don't know anyone, what do you do? Start off with the obvious, the low-hanging fruit. Connect with your alumni in your school you just graduated from. There's an alumni tool on LinkedIn, which is very cool. And then little risks. So if you're not comfortable, for example, reaching out to strangers on LinkedIn, start making meaningful comments on other people's posts, on companies that you follow, you can see yourself working at. Volunteer, join meetup groups. Maybe you love walking dogs, so join a dog walking meetup group. It doesn't have to be just so small. Think big and try different things. Take a multi-pronged approach. The networking events, go to conferences, mix it up, and please remember that talk to people, meet people. Don't just do it from behind the computer screen if you can.
Okay, awesome. I just want to add Amy, because she was like rapid fire on the texting. She said volunteer. She volunteers for 2 organizations, and Sashi worked that in. Volunteering is so powerful. There's so many things that you can get out of it, but it's just an incredible way to build a network. One of my favorites is to take the dog to the dog park and talk with the dog people, because they come from all over. And I've had actually 2 clients get a job that way, the dog park.
Yeah, and I can just say, Karae, too, the way I can always connect when I move to community is through athletics. I've been in sport my whole life. And so I always find that I kind of start in the like is like when I'm somewhere new. And then try to diversify, really purposely diversify after there, but building in the areas of the things you're passionate about. For me, it's the outdoors or a volunteer organization, because like you just have a spark about you. And I find like that's what will attract people, you know, when that's the sort of front lead, as opposed to like always being the business focus. And so there'll be relationships, of course, that are like rooted in business and work, but especially when you're in somewhere new, like connecting to people through the things that light you up is a great way to make really authentic connections. And we did a huge transition for a big work transition, career transition for my husband when we moved here. And it was ultimately through me meeting a girl on a treadmill for a run. And it ended up being a career change for my husband. So yeah, and I think it's because we sparked a real authentic connection and have been friends since we moved. So
one last question, and it is such a good question. My daughter is 23. We have gone at this question, so thank you for this person bringing it up. This person wrote, I'm curious about the dichotomy between the idea of a shortage of workers, yet also that those who are in current positions end up taking on more work. How do you make the best of that situation or turn it to your advantage? And when do you know when it's time to consider other options? So understand, my daughter was serving, they got shorthanded during COVID, and the owner figured out that he could run on about half staff. And then he literally ran all his people into the ground. And so then they all walked away. So there's a lot of people, I think, from COVID that are pretty bitter about those kinds of things. As the tide turns, employers will not be able to do that anymore. So you can try having firm conversations and saying, like, try to set some boundaries, but you may also need to look for work. But it sounds like there's going to be lots of work out there. Would you guys, anybody else like to ply in there and add a thought?
Well, Karae, this is the world I've been living in, doing two full-time jobs for almost 2 years. And I think, again, it's like, you sort of realize you can do it. And I also am like, oh, I can do this. I've got this. But how I've been sort of managing is I have a great relationship with my supervisor, thankfully. And I am as honest as I can be around where I can commit my time. And so I don't have 200, I can't do 100% on both jobs. And when I'm 75% on one job and one job is sitting at 30%, like, for me, that's kind of, I try to really keep open communication with them. And so that they know they have a real clear eye on the risk of having me fully deployed on two jobs. And so to your point, Karae, around firm conversations, I think keep the communication open, consistent, don't shy away from flagging risks. It's not it's just a result of a situation you've been put in. But I think real consistent communication to flag those things early, ask for support. And that's how I've been navigating this sort of dual responsibilities over the past couple of years.
Wow. Okay. That sounds a little bit stressful. So, and Amy's also saying that transparency is important. So it's not a surprise to your supervisor that this is not working. And consistent one-on-ones. I'm super thankful my supervisor, and what I jokingly call my non-supervisor, which is a whole other story, I get to have regular one-on-ones with them. They're booked either once every 2 weeks or once a month. And I always think, oh, we have nothing to talk about. And then we're talking. And it is, again, another way to go back to Sashi's networking about creating authentic relationships. But you'll know if they can't be authentic, you can leave. You don't need to stay in those bad relationships. You can figure out an exit plan. It takes a bit, but it is manageable. So that is our final question. I just can't thank you enough for everything that you have done and contributed tonight. It's been awesome. In a nutshell, to use my little theme, it's been awesome. Thank you very, very much. I just want to throw the mic back to Saeed. He is going to wrap up for us. There you are.
Great. Thank you. Thank you first, our audience who's shared their evening with us, and also to our panelists, to Karae, to Sashi, Amy, and Heather, and also to everyone behind the scenes who helped us really tonight. That wasn't in the script, but I wanted to throw that here because they They were critical in making this happen. Me personally, I attended maybe tens of these events, and every time I come in thinking that, I've heard most of the things, but the story of how, I believe it was Sashi who said that transition from studying monkeys to going to Korea and all the way to going into workforce development, that is new. And as a recent grad, I think I can call myself a recent grad, I'm always thinking about how to transition. Am I going to be always in the field of work that I am now, or I'm going to transition into different ones? And so I think that, having heard that, I think I'm going to transition and to be flexible and open to where I'm going next. And I'll be asking our panelists some questions. Hopefully, I'll connect through LinkedIn. With that, I want to wrap up the event tonight. This event wraps up the Alumni Winterfest activities, but please stay tuned for more events. We have regional events in Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, and Ottawa. Some of them are career and networking focused, so those would be very beneficial, as well as the Distinguished Alumni Awards celebration event that will happen soon. And if you would like to know more about the current alumni programming, you can visit the website at alumni.uvic.ca. And again, I want to finish tonight with another thank you to you on behalf of UVic Alumni Association. We look forward to seeing you again. Have a great evening and see you soon.